Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. And this is an interview. This is the topic that I told you was going to happen last week. Let's welcome Anna to the show. How you doing, Anna?
I'm doing great.
So last week, you were nice enough to kind of run through your house hacking story, right? Sold the big place in Texas, moved in with in-laws in Pennsylvania, ultimately into a two-story fourplex where you had to trudge upstairs in snow with your kids. It was a great story.
Yes.
And something I'm doing on my channel is I'm doing deep dives. Last week was house hacking with roommates. Next week is house hacking units. But I've really not been able to ask you about your house hacking journey because you did it with kids.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about house hacking with kids. Again, did you self-manage? Did you pay a property manager? How was it? What was it like house hacking with kids?
You know what? It was definitely an adventure. I'll say that. It's definitely harder than doing it when you're single and starting out. But you know, the fundamentals of the financials is the same. Most people that start out house hacking, which is something that you and I both recommend to people newly getting started. If you don't own a house, buy your first apartment building house hacking. You can get USDA financing 100% plus closing costs in rural areas. And you can get FHA 3.5% financing on 1 to 4 unit of properties, right? So house hacking is the cheapest investment property you will ever own. I highly recommend it. With that said, yes, there were some pain points. And one of those things is most people that house hack haven't done it before. And so they don't think to hire a property management company. They're doing it to cut their expenses, right? Which is really important. We want to learn to live below our means so that we can work to expand our means. And that's really what house hacking is about. It's allowing you to kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you will. So you're cutting your living expenses. In my case, I had a 4-unit building. The 3 apartments that I rented out covered my mortgage, my taxes, and most of my insurance. So I was essentially living for free without renting an apartment or buying a big house, as long as I could keep those 3 units filled. And those were at below market rents for units that were kind of rough, right? So I bought a 4-unit apartment building in 2008. And I remember the details because it was my first one. I paid $225,000 for the property. I don't remember my mortgage rate, but it was fairly low. And at some point I refinanced it. It was FHA. I put 3.5% down and we moved in and we thought, okay, we are going to have tenants. Now, I had 3 tenants in the back of my husband's commercial property for a year. So I had about a year experience with those tenants, and I had a tenant in a property flip in Texas. So I had minor experience having tenants, and I thought it won't be too bad, right? The real question is, do I tell them that I own the building and let them know I'm the owner and the property manager, or do I not? And there's all kinds of, thoughts about that. If you buy with these great mortgages, you have to have it in your name. You can't have an LLC, right? So it was in my name. They knew my name. They knew I was the owner, right? So the challenges that come with that is that they see you, and every time they see you, hi, Anna, I need you to come over. I'm having a problem. My batteries in my smoke detector are beeping. Can you come change my light bulb? It's like, no. We don't do that. You can change your own light bulb. You can change your own batteries in your smoke detectors, right? But what happens is there's no boundaries. And does that suck? Yes. Does it keep me from ever wanting to do another house hack again? Absolutely not, right? It's a minor inconvenience. But what I learned from that is you have to set boundaries. So when you house hack and you live there and your tenants know that you're the owner, you tell your tenants in a nice little letter when you're meeting them, you hand it to them and you tell them, I'm the owner of the building and we're self-managing. We're new owners, right? We work full-time. We're not available 24/7. You can text me at this number from 8 to 5. Do not knock on my door unless it's an absolute emergency. Water is leaking in your apartment or there's a fire. Do not knock on my door and don't call me after 5 o'clock. If you can have that respect, this is a business. We'll be great owners. We'll have a great relationship. And once we kind of put that boundary in place and we learn to get great at tenant screening, people who had no criminal background, people who could pay their mortgage, people that were going to take care of things, house hacking became really easy. And it taught me to live well below my means. And everything we made on saving on a mortgage payment, I saved up to use as a down payment on the next rental property and the next rental property and the next rental property. So I house hacked while buying rental property instead of buying my own house. And then after that, I rented a house and saved money and kept buying rental properties while I rented.
Yeah, it's again, communication, expectation setting. Again, I want to go back to the beginning. So you buy this, it's in your name. They're in rough shape. I'm guessing the unit you moved into was vacant when you bought it. I'm guessing
it was vacant when we bought it. Okay. And right before we moved in, we had the kitchen redone. We over improved because we were going to live in it. We wanted it to be nice. Mm-hmm. It was a second story apartment. And then the third story had kind of a makeshift attic with old wallpaper from the 60s all over it, kind of dark and musty, no AC or heating up there. We converted that to a bedroom and we converted this little small space to an office. So we did some work, sweat equity, did our own work to get most of it done, replaced our windows. But the challenge with having kids and trying to live in a place that you're kind of updating as you go, and you're up in an attic that's nasty, and you're trying, your kids are mommy, come down, and they're crying. I had babies. They were 10 months old and 3 months old when we moved here.
Oh, wow.
They were about a year and a half and 4 when we bought the house hack.
Okay. All right.
And so, it definitely was more challenging having little babies because they want your attention all the time. So when you're working, my husband had his own business. And then at night we were renovating our unit, slowly renovating and update the other units, right? Mm-hmm. I had read a book called Multifamily Millions. It was the only book I ever bought on multi-unit properties for years, the only one. And I read that and I thought, okay, I can update the units, raise the rental value, cut the expenses, and make it worth a lot more. And then I can take equity from it. So part of my reason for house hacking was knowing this was possible. So we slowly, as tenants moved out, we did updates to their units with our babies on yucky floors, crying and crying because they wanted to go home and they were tired, and we were painting at 2:00 in the morning before the next renter moved in. Like, it was sweat equity and learning 101, but with babies crying and begging you to stop every minute of the day. So I'm not going to lie and say it wasn't stressful, but for someone that started out at that time, Michael, we had started a business the year before with $700,000 in debt at the height of the economy in 2007. Stupid, right? But we did it. We thought the economy was going to keep getting better and not go worse. And so we not only were poor because we had put everything we had into that business and went into debt, but we had no extra money. And so we did it the hard way. And you know what? It's the best thing we ever did. I would, if I lost everything tomorrow and had to start over, we would house hack an older building, do the same thing, now easier without kids.
Yeah. So I just want to paint the vision. How long were you in that one before you moved to the second one? Was it a couple of years?
2 years.
So you're in this for 2 years. You probably recycled the first 3 tenants, I'm guessing.
Yes.
By the time you left, you were probably living for free. Even the extra insurance was probably being paid for as rents went up.
Absolutely. Yes. We raised the rent significantly on the other 3 units.
Yeah. Again, you should go back in Anna's playlist video just last week. This is the best financial decision she ever made. She
Absolutely.
went from negative 700,000 to multi-millionaires. And again, that's an impressive journey. And to say that this is the most, or this is the best financial decision should wake a lot of you up. And again, I want to stress, you sold the big house, the McMansion. The goal of every adult to live with your mother-in-law for a little while, and then a house hack a fourplex that was value add through and through.
Absolutely.
You did it the right way.
The amazing thing was after that, because I found out I was pregnant. I've talked about this in another video, but when everything crashed in 2009, the week literally that AIG was going under, who I worked for, I found out I was pregnant with baby number 3 the same week. So I'm like, I lost my 401k. I was about to be laid off. I'm pregnant with baby number 3. We're living in an apartment. And I stood in that living room with my husband bawling, thinking everything we've done to be financially smart has completely not worked. But it was that light bulb that, you know what, people are still paying on my properties. And by then I bought another 4-unit building, right, during that time. So now I had, essentially 2 4-unit buildings and a commercial building. My tenants were paying rent. And it was this aha that a company's not going to be my way to wealth. My 401k is not going to be my way to wealth. My husband's self-employed business, even a good business, was not my way to wealth. The only thing that was consistent through that recession was people paid rent. So the next thing I did, Michael, is I moved into a rented house instead of buying a really nice house that I could rent for less than putting down a big down payment on a house. But my house hack on that 4-unit building, the rents were now so high, I was making about $4,000 a month on it, that after all expenses, the difference actually paid my entire rental payment on the rent house that I bought. So even though the one I moved into wasn't a house hack, it was paid for by the house hack. And I still lived essentially for free for the next 3 years that I rented that house while saving everything extra to buy multiple additional rental properties instead of buying my own house. And again, that was the second phase of that, but it was getting content to live below my means while I work to expand my means. And I recommend that every single person do that concept.
Folks, let's just say what it is. If Anna can step back, downsize, go backwards in life, house hack upstairs fourplex in Pennsylvania where it snows, value add, just you can do it too. If you don't choose to, that's on you. But don't say you can't do it. It's a choice. You absolutely can do it. Are you going to? That's on you. So one thing I want everybody to know is we are doing a Saturday deep dive with Matt and Dion about house hacking units. It is going to be, if you're one of my students, free to come, get on, ask questions. And as always, we give it away. You will be able to see it right here on YouTube, 9 a.m. Sunday. I do this with my students, so I make sure there's no trolls and haters, but we will give away on YouTube, probably 90 minutes. I look forward to doing that. And Anna, house hacking with kids, it can be done.
Absolutely. The one thing I'll end with here, Michael, is there was a phrase that I heard Dave Ramsey say one time, and it was live like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow, right? And while I don't agree with all of Dave Ramsey's principles, what I do agree with is that if you learn to live below your means while you work to expand your means and invest in properties, you are making a small sacrifice for a short amount of time that if you continue to do it will guarantee wealth in the future. But if you buy the big house, you have the car payments, and you only have a little bit left over to invest with, you may never grow wealth, right? So learning to delay gratification and to really take a step back in order to leap forward, it is the absolute best way to grow wealth. And I recommend that everybody that doesn't have, a large family that says they can't do it, buy a duplex if it's not a fourplex. But if you can, and you're struggling and you're living check to check and you want to expand, house hack a property. It's the best thing I ever did.
I interview 8 or 9 millionaires every week, and at least half of them will say that house hacking was the best financial decision they've ever made. So folks, there's a signal in there somewhere. Thanks, Anna.
You're so welcome.